Welcome to Talk Across America. I'm Doug Miles, and we're here in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. And joining us now on our Book Talk segment, great to welcome a man who's written another one of his great series of books. He's really been a historian of World War II, and this is another fascinating book. It's called The Battle of Arnhem, the deadliest airborne operation of World War II. We're joined today by Antony Beevor on the telephone. And Antony, good to talk with you. How are you?
Very well. Good to be with you, Doug.
Yeah, great to have a chance to talk with you. My dad served in World War II, so anytime I can talk to an author that's written about that war, I really look forward to it. So glad to have you with us today. But, well, you really kind of made a nice career of studying this, right? It's been a great passion of yours, I imagine.
It has indeed. You know, it's certainly been the last 30 years or so I've been working on the subject. So it's great to actually work at what you really enjoy and what really interests you.
Yeah, I know you wrote a book about, of course, D-Day, the Battle of Normandy, which I guess most people know something more about, but this particular book, the Battle of, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Arnhem, very few people, I guess, would know about it. So I'm glad you wrote about it, because I really not heard much about this particular battle, which I guess was the last part of World War II that the Germans actually won, right? Is that basically what happened?
Well, that was very much, they called it, in fact, the last German victory. But many, I don't know, some of your listeners may well have seen the film of Bridge Too Far.
Right.
Basically, that's all about the Battle of Arnhem and Operation Market Garden, as it was called. But it was really a problem, if you like, of bad planning. I mean, the idea was in the end of August and the beginning of September 1944, with the victory already secured in Normandy, the retreat of the Germans through northern France and through Belgium into Holland, pulling back really to the German frontier. The British and the Americans thought that really this was almost the end of the war, and Montgomery came up, Field Marshal Montgomery came up with this plan of Operation Market Garden, which was to drop these airborne divisions, the American 101st, the American 82nd, and the British 1st Airborne Divisions, and the Polish Independent Parachute Brigade. And all of them were going to be dropped in this line all the way up from the Belgian frontier with Holland, all the way up to Arnhem on the River Rhine. And Montgomery's real plan, of course, was to get across the Rhine, the River Rhine, before the Americans, because then he felt that this would force Eisenhower, the Supreme Commander, to give him all the supplies and also perhaps command over American formations. And then he would be top dog and he would lead the attack into Germany. So I'm afraid there was a distinct element of vanity and pride which played its part in the planning, and that is always pretty fatal.
Yeah, I know people that watched the movie Patton, that kind of told a little bit of that story too, how Patton and Montgomery, they were kind of rivals in a sense, right? I mean, for getting the
Well, they
glory.
were indeed.
Yeah, so even though they're on the same
they
side, technically, but they were sort of rivals against each other in another sense, weren't they?
Well, and General Bradley, Patton's boss, absolutely hated Montgomery. Montgomery, who was totally incapable of really understanding how other people felt about him, was quite convinced that Bradley really liked him, but Bradley thoroughly disliked him. And yes, Eisenhower had quite a job trying to keep all these very different generals together and working in a way which was going to effectively defeat the Germans.
I know you talk about in the book, you mentioned the paratroop mission called Operation Market Garden, and you look back at the technology of flying back then. It was only about 20 years into the ability to fly planes like that. It's amazing that they could even do a mission like that, right? But it was poorly planned, in your opinion, right?
Well, the first parachute units were in the Red Army, in the Soviet Army in the 1930s.
Right.
But they never really used them during the Second World War. It was the Germans who developed it in 1940, then in the invasion of Crete in 1941, which I've also written about. And then here in Operation Market Garden, it was the Allies who had got really carried away by the idea that the future of warfare was airborne forces. It wasn't just Montgomery; it was General Marshall back in Washington and General Hap Arnold, the head of the U.S. Army Air Force. They really thought that this was the future, and they had created this first Allied airborne army based in England, which was bringing together all of the airborne divisions, and they were going to use them in this sort of first real mass operation. But I'm afraid with Montgomery trying to impose his plan on the Air Force, and the Air Force was not going to play because they realized that Montgomery's plan didn't take into account many of the problems. And as a result, the plan was a very bad compromise, and this was one of the reasons why, in fact, it was a failure.
And the casualty account, I mean, 17,000 for the Allies, roughly, and then the after effect, I think the statistics you have in your book, some 20,000 Dutch civilians. I mean, they didn't have the food or any kind of supplies there, so they died after the fact.
They died of starvation, right? But another 3,000 or so were killed in the fighting at Arnhem,
right?
And many more were shot in reprisal afterwards. So it was a very nasty time for the Dutch, and actually the Dutch have shown themselves to be incredibly generous in the way they've forgiven the British for it. I mean, I was in Arnhem in the time of the anniversary, just a month or two ago, and there they had all the flags out, the Pegasus flags, the symbol of the airborne divisions, the triumphal arches to welcome the veterans, and the children who were going to lay flowers on every single one of the graves of the paratroopers who died there. And the American veterans of 82nd and 101st, they are welcome just as much in Eindhoven and in Nijmegen, where they dropped. So it is actually a very sort of moving legacy of the Second World War, that a country which had suffered such a disaster and such suffering as a result of this disaster should welcome them back in the way that they do.
So they do commemorate this battle.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
In fact, Dutch journalists were asking me, why is it? They said there's even more interest in the Second World War now than there was 20 years ago, and they were asking me to explain it.
Yeah, I guess so many, obviously, the veterans of that war, obviously, we're losing them quite rapidly, so there is interest, I guess, from their families and offspring and historians as well, so they want to know what happened, right?
Well, they are. I think that's one aspect, but there are many others, too. I think one of the reasons why the Second World War has a grip on our imagination is also because people think, what would I have done? Would I have actually had the courage to keep going? Would I have collapsed out of combat fatigue or whatever it might be?
Right.
And we do pose questions. And also, the Second World War had more moral choices, major decisions which any individual had to make about whether they were going to work with the resistance or whether they would be prepared to hide Jews from the Germans. Those sort of decisions were fundamental, and they are actually a key element in all human drama, and that's why I think there are still so many books and novels and movies and TV series which are set in the Second World War.
Yeah. Great, obviously terrible situation, but great drama nonetheless. The Battle of Arnhem is the name of the book, the deadliest airborne operation of World War II. We've been talking with Antony Beevor today. Antony, I believe you have a website. Give that out if you would. People get more information about the book.
Well, yes, there's more information on it, and it's just simply AntonyBeevor.com, which is AntonyBevor.com, or on the Penguin website. That certainly has got more details too. But otherwise, in your local bookshop.
Great. We'll also put a link on our website too. But Antony, pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again. I know whatever your next project is, we'll have you back. But thanks for being with us today.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Doug. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining us today on Talk Across America. Please visit our website at dougmilesmedia.com for more great interviews and content. And if you're interested in any of the books we talk about on the program, please click the Amazon link on our website. It helps support the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again real soon here from beautiful Sarasota, Florida.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.